Thanks for checking out this video. Before we start, I am not a financial advisor and none of this should be considered financial advice. This tool is for educational and personal planning purposes only. It does not constitute financial, tax, legal or investment advice. All projections are estimates based on the values that you enter and are not guaranteed. Hi and welcome to this tutorial on using the AI Ready Retirement Income Planner. This is going to be more of a deep dive where we actually walk through the full process of setting up a scenario from beginning to end. Just before we start, just want to point out that here in version 5 down here we do have the required minimum distribution warning, and so if we increase our 401k withdrawal here, we can see that warning goes away. Anyway, let's start this by using our setup wizard. Now the setup wizard is included in version 4 and 5, so we'll click that to get started, and we'll take our time kind of going through this step by step. You can always fast forward the video if you feel it's taking a little bit too long, but let's start by reading the top here. It says, welcome to the AI Ready Retirement Income Planner. This 5-step wizard gets you up and running in about 3 minutes. You can skip any time and fill in values later from the Edit All Values tab. So, month by month simulation models 401k cash and Roth balances across up to 5 retirement phases with tax, ACA premiums, inflation, and Social Security all calculated for you. In version 3 onwards, we also have the ability to include rental and passive income, and we can model this between taxable and non-taxable treatments. That's so that you can compare like what it would be with the tax and what it is without the tax, and you can kind of make your estimations as to what the difference is there. In version 3 onwards, we have the RMD tracker that we just looked at. That's available in phase 5. We have the Canada and Australia currencies and scenarios from version 4 onwards. We also have custom phase boundaries, so we can change the age at which phases start. So if we want phase 4 to start at 70 instead of 72, we can change that. And we also have the married filing jointly, the Roth IRA and the Social Security Optimizer included in this version 4. So let's read the tip here. It says, after setup, use the rate research prompt in the analysis and AI tab to get verified current tax figures from an AI assistant, then update the tax parameters in Edit All Values. Now, we did do a tutorial video on that, so if you want to deep dive into that, check out that other video. Let's press next for now. So let's enter our current age. Let's say we are 58 right now, and we want to retire at 59 and a half. Let's say we've got 250,000 in our 401k. How much cash do we have saved up? Let's say we have a nice round $100,000 cash saved up, and we're not going to include a Roth IRA here. This is the rate at which you think your 401k might grow every year. I've got it set at an optimistic 7% here. They do say that the markets have increased by about 10% per year on average over the last several years or so. You can research that, but I believe that's about right. And then if you've got cash in a high yield savings account, you can put the rate here. Let's say that's about 3.5% at the moment. Okay, monthly income across sources. Enter your expected government benefits and initial withdrawal amounts. Fine-tune per phase figures later in the Edit All Values tab. So this is just to get us started. Let's say our social security is 2,000. That's about the average, I think. We expect the social security amount to increase by about 2.6% each year, and that number can be adjusted here if you would like to try different scenarios. Our UK pension, let's say that would be about $1,600 in several years' time. That's if you have one. If you don't have one, obviously put zero in this area. Inflation assumptions, this is just general inflation. I believe this year inflation was 3.3%, so let's put in 3.3 for now. And with our monthly withdrawals in phase one, let's just start off with 1,000 from each there just to get us going. And now we're looking at the filing status area. So are we single? Are we married? Filing jointly? Let's go with single for now. Do we have rental or passive income? Let's go with yes, and I'll put in, this is a year, so let's put in $15,000 a year, and that's going to be taxable. Our required minimum distributions are going to start at 73. We can alter that if we want to. So now, next steps. After finishing this wizard, open the Edit All Values tax parameters to verify brackets match current law. The Rate Research prompt in the Analyst and AI tab gives you an AI-ready prompt to fetch verified up-to-date figures. And if you haven't seen it, that we do have a video that walks you through the process of updating those figures. And now we're ready to plan. Your basic setup is complete. Here's a quick checklist to get the most from the planner. So what are we going to do? We're going to review the Overview tab, check the 5 phase cards. Each shows a net monthly income, estimated tax, ACA premiums, and ending balances. Click any values to edit in place. Changes recalculate instantly. Get the current tax rates. We just talked about that. And we can fine tune the withdrawals. Click the replan button, or the edit the values directly on the phase cards, and watch the tax rates and the ACA eligibility feedback to optimize your withdrawal across the phases. And then once you've got the scenario looking good, we can save that scenario, so we'll take a look at that as well. This wizard might pop up when you open the screen for the first time, but if you don't want that to happen, you can always uncheck this box here. So we can see that the dashboard has been populated with the information that we've given it. Our first withdrawal here was 1,000. That's what we said we were going to look at. So now we are ready to start planning. Okay, so the way we approach this is we want to know how much can we withdraw from each of these categories while still leaving a healthy balance at the end here. So now it says I've got equities of 10,000. Let's update that. Let's say I've got 50,000 in equities there, and we'll leave the starting cash at 100. So we want to figure out how much can we withdraw here. Now, one of the things that we want to be aiming for is our monthly income, and trying to get our monthly income to be where we want it to be. So for example, if we look at this, it says our real income is about 3,000 at the minute. Let's say we wanted it to be more like 3,500. We could withdraw a little bit more equity, so if I put that up to 600 there, that would get us to about the 3,500. But a lot of people like to leave the equity and the 401k to a certain extent to grow over time. If we look at the equity here, it says it's 60,000, and then at the end of phase 2, which is age 65, the equity would be 75, and it increases to 92 and 143, and then finally here it increases to 304, and that's just the nature of your investments growing over time. If you spend all your investments early on, they don't have as much chance to grow. If you use cash early on, that gives your investments time to grow, and you can generally get a higher monthly income throughout the lifetime of this plan by delaying um, those equity withdrawals. So let's go with that strategy, and we've got some cash here, so let's go with 1,500 cash for our first phase. That gets us to about 3.5, which is what we were originally aiming for. Again, we can adjust and tweak that later depending on how the rest of this goes. Now we will increase our equity withdrawal here, and the beauty of this is you don't really need to know what you're doing when you first start. You can kind of just experiment. Let's take 2,000 a month here and see what happens. Okay, so a couple of things have happened here. The first thing is we notice that our tax now is higher than it was in phase 1, and we notice that our health insurance premium, if we're using the ACA marketplace, that has also increased dramatically too. That's because we've got a higher income, and if we look at the ACA Silver cost saving reductions, that's showing us a red flag here, because our income is now too high to benefit from those savings there. You can research the ACA Silver CSR, but basically if you go over 250% of the federal poverty level, you lose all kinds of benefits like your out-of-pocket maximums, your co-pays and deductibles. They're all going to be a lot higher. So in this phase, we generally want to take advantage of those benefits. So again, let's bring this down. Okay, that's not enough. Let's bring it to 1,200. Okay, that gets us in. Can we get 1,250? Yeah, okay, so we'll do that. And if we want to maintain 3.5, we're a little bit short here, so we've got enough cash here, so let's increase that again to 600. That brings us to about 3,500. Our health insurance premium is reasonable, and our tax is reasonable, and we're still in the 10% bracket. Okay, let's move on here. We've got plenty in the 401k pot at the end of this scenario, so let's bump that up to 2,000 a month, and let's see how the cash is going. We're still okay for cash, so let's bump that up, and this is where we could start taking a little bit of equity too. So for now, let's put 500 in there. That gives us over 3,500, so that's quite healthy. We've got a healthy amount in these ending balances here, so let's look at phase 4, and again we'll go for a 2,000 withdrawal here. That's still pretty good. We could probably, I don't know, let's go for 2,500. Okay, so we're still in the 12% tax bracket, so that's good. Cash withdrawal, we don't want to go too low on cash, but we might be able to go up to 500 here. Okay, that takes us down to about 11,000 cash. That's a little less. Oh, okay, so we'll get 18,000 at the end of that. That's not too bad, and we could increase the equity withdrawal here. We've still got plenty of equity left. Let's go to our final phase and start working on that. Let's do 2,500, and cash. We're not going to take any cash on this one. We've got our social security, which has been increased with inflation. Obviously, first social security check was lower. It's around 2,000, but by the time it was 72, with inflation, our check should be higher, and we've got plenty of equity in here, so let's go for 1,000 a month here. Okay, so now the equity's gone. That's obviously too much. Let's do 800, and we've still got 20,000 left there. So let's just take stock of where we are. We've got 3,500, 3,500, 3,700, 4,842. So actually, I think I would prefer to spend my money uh, around this age and while I'm still healthy. Um, so uh, let's rebalance this a little bit. I don't, I feel 4,000 would be enough here. So let's do 2,200 in this one. Actually, let's go a little bit lower. Let's go to 2,000. Okay, so that brings it to about 4,000. Now that's going to give me a little bit more that I could use in this phase. So let's try 2,800. That gives me over 4,000. That's healthy. We could probably... I don't know if we can bump this up. I think that might... Yeah, that takes us over, so we're going to keep that. We're going to keep that there. Actually, if you want the cheaper health insurance at this age, it does kind of mean that you're going to be limited on how much you can withdraw from those income accounts. We could take more cash here. That would be one way to do it. Our cash runs out later on if we do that. So let's reduce the amount of cash in the next phase. And we still have a little bit of cash left there, so that's okay. I've got around 4,000 here in real income. I've got around 4,000 here. Here I've got 4,800, which is still very high. So maybe we could smooth that out a bit. Let's take this to 2,000. That gives us about 4.5, and then we can add some here. That takes us to about 4.5. There's 4.5, and we've actually got plenty left in our pot here at the end of this, so we could probably increase this to 2,400. Yep, that works. And so we've got just under 4.5 there as well. So we've kind of got a withdrawal strategy here that seems to work. Obviously, we can fine tune this before some more, but for now, I think that's enough to kind of show you the process of doing this. We can see that our average net income a month is 5,411 on this particular plan. And what we could do now is, well, a couple of things. The first thing is we could use this AI advisor prompt in order to have AI analyze this scenario for us and make suggestions how we might be able to make it better. I do go over that in another tutorial video, so I'm not going to do that now. We could rename this, so I'm going to put something like, 250k 401k to start. So that's just renaming it to kind of give me an idea of what this scenario is. And now what we can do is we can export that scenario. I'm going to just give it a name so that I can remember what it is. 401k at 250. And there it is. So now if we want to import that from we can do that. So just to show you how that works, if I reset this now to the defaults, we've lost all the stuff that we've done, but don't worry, we can go to our downloads here and we can restore that back to show us the one that we've just done. So that gives us an overview of how to use this. We can see our total tax. We can keep tweaking this to try and see if we can get that tax figure down. We could extend this to age 90. If I extend this to age 90, I can see my 401k runs out and my cash runs out. So I might want to tweak these values a little bit to make sure that I've got enough to last now until 90, and that's something that you can do at any time. You don't have to do it immediately. You might wait till you're 80 years old and then come back to this and use the replan from today feature to replan that. I'm just going to cancel out of that, but that would be a way to extend it to 90. And then if you do have a a scenario that you've extended to 90, again you can export that, and then you can compare them side by side. How much am I going to have each month if I'm planning to 80? How much am I going to have each month if I'm planning to 90? A couple more things I'd like to just show you here on version 5. The edit all values area has got a few more things in here that are available for you to edit. Looking at that, and if we want to add a cash lump sum at any point, let's say that we're very lucky and somebody gives us a nice gift of $50,000, and that happens in phase 2, and it's a nice lovely gift. Look, there we go. Let's add that. And now if we go to this, we can see that we've got a one-time gift. This could be a house sale, downsizing, it could be inheritance, or any number of different things here, but that gives us more cash now. So actually we could rebalance the entire scenario now to give us a little bit more each month, pulling cash from our accounts and our equities to keep all these values here within range, so that we can benefit from low tax and low insurance premiums too. So I also just quickly show you, we have the scenarios tab here, which gives you a pessimistic scenario, a best case scenario, and an optimistic scenario based on different interest rates, fluctuations. For example, if my 401k achieves 9% and inflation is 2%, then our numbers might look like this. So if our 401k only achieves 4% and inflation is 4%, we could end up actually running out of money before the end of phase 5 here. But if we look at the optimistic scenario, we've got 275,000 in our 401k, so it really does make a big difference. And you can come back to this at any time and rebalance it based on the current situation when it's time to rebalance. And we also have the total portfolio balance for these 3 scenarios. It's shown here. That's the optimistic, that's the base case, and the pessimistic. So nice visual indicator. We have a social security optimizer here, which is great for figuring out how much money you might have to spend at various ages depending on when you take out your social security. It's got a nice graph here about your break-even ages, so you can look at this and apply it to your own situation. We have a balance chart. I think a lot of people like to see these balances depleting by the end of the expected retirement duration here, and a nice visual indicator that shows us how much we are getting per month, nominal versus real. So you can see that the real income that we're getting in phase 5 is about $4,200, but the actual income that we will be withdrawing when we get to the age of 72 is more like 7,000 a month, but that would be the equivalent of about 4,200 in today's money. We have a stress test here. Average net monthly income and estimated total portfolio at age 80 across 12 combined scenarios. Blue is your current base case. Return delta applies equally to 401k, cash, ELTA, equity, Roth, and superannuation, I believe, for the different countries. And again, we've got a low inflation and high inflation and very high inflation scenarios. We also have a Monte Carlo simulation here. So how do we use this? Each simulation runs your full retirement plan from start to age 80 using the same withdrawal schedule, but with randomized annual portfolio returns drawn from a normal distribution. The spread shows how sequence of returns, risk, and return volatility affect outcomes. A wider fan equals more uncertainty. If the P10 line approaches zero, your plan may be vulnerable. In poor return scenarios, consider reducing withdrawals or increasing conservative allocations. This is a useful area to look at. The probability of success, really. If this is 80% or above, you're in pretty good shape. And then the ACA and tax notes here if you want to learn a little bit more about the calculations that are happening in the background to make all this happen. And of course, once our scenario is dialed in, we could see, well, what would it be like if I retired in the Philippines, for example. So here it would our monthly income if we were in the Philippines. Now you might see that that is slightly higher, so this phase 3 is 4,400, but if we do retire in the Philippines, it's going to be more like 4,600. That takes into account the fact that we're not paying these ACA premiums here and the Medicare costs. Um, if that was the case, we might want to do a little bit of rebalancing here and adjust these figures here, and then we could save that as a Philippines scenario and compare the two together. So anyway, I hope that helps, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll be delighted to help, and I'll see you in the next video.